We'll call this meeting to order. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Al, could you do roll call, please?
Benson. Here. Sarda. Here. Hoffman.
Present.
Mosier.
Here.
John.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
City Manager Leon.
Here.
City Attorney Dan Herder.
Here. You have before you the regular meeting minutes of February 10th. What is your pleasure?
Move the minutes.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion about the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Thank you very much. City Manager's report.
Honorable Mayor, members of the Commission and public, our mission is to provide exemplary experiences, services, and spaces that create opportunities for everyone to learn, engage, and thrive. Just a couple of reminders for you this evening. As you know, we are in the process of gathering petitions for City Commission. We have 4 petitioners who have filed. The deadline to petition to run for City Commission at the April 14th election is Friday at 5 p.m. So folks need to get their petitions into the Finance Office no later than that time. Also, I sent you all commissioners an update on sort of where we're at in terms of our FEMA process. We did have a meeting with FEMA last week, and we are in the queue for some funding. We think we'll start to receive some funding in the next 1 to 3 months. We're also looking at applying for a FEMA program which will help us acquire properties that have been identified as at risk along Marne Creek. So at our next City Commission meeting, you'll have separate actions on each of those properties, and Dave Mingo is working with property owners. This is not one of those types of situations where a property owner is forced to sell the property. It's all voluntary, so it's only folks that are willing to work with the city that we're talking to. So there'll be a number of those coming forward. I don't know the exact number yet because we are still working with them, but you'll have those on the agenda for the 9th, and what will happen then is if they're approved, there'll be I believe it's a 75%, 25% local match. We're also visiting with FEMA about architectural and engineering analysis for the south stretch of the creek. Marne Creek is one area where they've realized the project is so big that they're not able just to provide us with the amount of damage that we estimated. So they want us to do further analysis and actually design some projects. And to do that, we've told them just the engineering itself is going to be more than what we can afford straight out. So we're going to work with them on providing or making an application for engineering and architectural design for the projects on the south stretch of the creek. We also have applied for some EDA funding for the damage that was done and some upgrades to our wastewater treatment plant to better prepare. Internally, staff met to talk about how do we prepare for wet weather. Should we have wet weather coming up? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the State of the Community address tomorrow. But we've purchased more barricades. We've bought some plastic and staged some things for manhole to secure manholes if water would come up quickly. We're also working to make sure that we have a way to update road closures in real time with a link with emergency management in District 3, working on that so people can see if we do have any kind of evacuation or flood situation. People can see what roads are closed. And we've also just reassessed and looked at our plan and said, what did we do right last year and what went wrong last year? So we feel we're in good shape. And then, of course, taking a look at the creek and culverts, clearing any snags or anything that we happen to find. Fortunately, these warm weekends we've had have helped us get rid of some snow. So we don't think we're going to be in the situation we were last year, but just with South Dakota weather, you never know. So we feel like we're in a good shape should we have high water situation. Also in the Commission Information Memorandum, there is some information about citywide cleanup. We're starting to talk about that already. Citywide cleanup will begin curbside on Monday, April the 6th. We ask that people not put things out on the curb any sooner than March 28th. So if you're doing some spring cleaning, please hold off. We have a lot of information about that initiative that we do every year, and every year we talk about things you should and shouldn't do, things we do pick up and don't pick up. So please check that out. We'll be talking about that a lot. And we'll also have some free Saturdays around that time of year at the transfer station. So if you just don't want your things sitting out, you can take them out there yourself without charge. As I mentioned, tomorrow is the State of the Community Address. That'll be at Minerva's, and I'll be speaking with, I believe, Chairman Lose from the Yankton County Commission. So I'm willing to stand for questions or tell you more about anything else you want to know.
Just a comment. Thanks so much for working together with FEMA, and we found that it's very true with the FAA and dealing with FAA with funds, in the same regards with FEMA, to make sure that we play nice, we dot our I's in a timely manner. It's so important. A lot of cities do not do that. And I just compliment the staff and Manager Leon on dotting our I's in a timely manner and working with these agencies.
Thanks, Jake. And two, we realize that people, especially this spring when the weather gets nicer, are going to kind of wonder what's going on with the trail. Why isn't it fixed yet? It's going to be quite some time. It'll be, 1 to 2 years before we start to see the ability to do some projects there. So Todd and his staff are working on connections so people can still utilize our trail system. We'll have to see how the thaw goes, whether we remove some of that concrete or whether that stays. That might actually be helping stabilize right now. So we'll take a look at all those things, but appreciate the comment. That's been an extra other duty as a sign that a lot of staff people have taken on this year, and it's going to be ongoing.
Are there any more questions for the city manager? All right. Now's the time for public appearances, so anyone in the audience who would like to address the commission about an item not on tonight's agenda, we would ask that you step to the podium. Seeing no movement, we will move on to the consent item agenda. Number 1 is establishing March 9th, 2020 as the date for the public hearing on the request for a special malt beverage on-sale retailer's license for August 22nd, 2020 from the Yankton Rodeo Association. Number 2 is establish March 9th, 2020 as the date for the public hearing on the request for a new on-sale liquor restaurant license for January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 from To Be Free LLC, doing business as R&B Beer and Burgers and River Rock. Number 3 is establish March 9th, 2020 as the date for the public hearing on the request for a special events malt beverage on-sale retailer's license and a special retail on-sale wine dealer's license for March 21st, 2020 from Ag Farmers for an event at the NFAA. Number 4, establish March 9th, 2020 as the date for the public hearing on the request for a transfer of ownership and location of a retail off-sale malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license for July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020 from iMart Stores LLC at 301 Broadway Avenue to Shree LLC, doing business at Shree LLC at 821 Broadway Avenue. Number 5, establish March 9th, 2020 as the date for the public hearing on the request for a transfer of name and reduction of location of a retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license for July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020 from Shree LLC at 821 Broadway Avenue. What is your pleasure?
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on any of these items? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on any of these items? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to old business. Number 1, consideration memorandum 20-33 regarding a request for a new retail on-off sale wine and cider license for January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 from Yasso LLC, doing business as Caribe Fusion at 1208 Broadway. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffner.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Schram,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 2 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-34 regarding the request for a special events malt beverage on-sale retailer's license for March 17th, 2020 from the center at 900 Whiting Drive. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Moser,
Aye.
Schram,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 3 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-35 regarding the request for a new retail on-off sale wine and cider license for January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 from Burr Oak LLC at 304 West 3rd Street. What is your pleasure?
Move the memorandum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Moser,
Aye.
Schram,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 4 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-36 regarding the request for a new retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license for July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020 from Burr Oak LLC. What is your pleasure?
I'll move the memorandum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Schram,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Moser,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 5 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-37 regarding the request for a transfer of corporation of a retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm license for July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020 from Dayhoff Enterprises, Inc. to Ladybird, Inc. at 106 through 112 East 3rd Street. What is your pleasure?
Move the memorandum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Moser,
Aye.
Schram,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 6 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-38 regarding the request for a transfer of corporation of a retail on-sale liquor license for January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 from Dayhoff Enterprises, Inc. to Stripes, Inc. at 102 through 104 East 3rd Street. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Benson,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Moser,
Aye.
Schram, Weber,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 7 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-39 regarding the request for a transfer of corporation of a retail on-sale liquor license for January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 from Dayhoff Enterprises, Inc. to Ladybird, Inc. at 106 through 112 East 3rd Street. What is your pleasure?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Sarda,
Aye.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Moser,
Aye.
Schram,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 8 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-40 regarding the request for a transfer of corporation of a package off-sale liquor license for January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 from Dayhoff Enterprises, Inc. to Ladybird, Inc. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Hoffman,
Aye.
Moser,
Aye.
Schram,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 9 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-41 regarding the request for a transfer of corporation of a retail on-sale liquor license for January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 from Dayhoff Enterprises, Inc. to Lucky Irish, Inc. And that is at 204 West 3rd Street. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Mosier.
Aye.
Schron.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffman.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 10, under old business, is consideration of memorandum 20-42 regarding the request for a special events malt beverage on-sale retailer's license and a special retail on-sale wine dealer's license for March 14th, 2020 from Lewis and Clark Theater Company at 328 Walnut Street. What is your pleasure?
Move the memorandum. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Schron.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffman.
Aye.
Mosier.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Finally, number 11 under old business is consideration of memorandum 20-43 regarding the request for a special events off-sale package dealer's license for March 27th, 2020 from Yankton Area Chamber of Commerce for an event at River Rock Event Center at 2901 Broadway Avenue.
I'd
What is
like
your
to
pleasure?
make a motion that we approve memorandum 20-43.
Second.
Did I say something wrong? Or- No? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion? I think we might have a discussion with our legislators this year to see if we can simplify this process. It seems like our agendas are increasingly taken up by these types of very mundane details that neither the commission or the public is interested in having public hearings about. So, would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffman quickly.
Aye.
I'm sorry, I couldn't pass that. Mosier.
Aye.
Schron.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Moving on to new business and an entirely different subject. Consideration of memorandum 20-44 regarding resolution 20-12, a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility from OK Properties and WDM Properties, and the address would be 3010 Piper Street. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Dave, just reading through the memorandum, it looked like while we can't mandate that they do some cosmetic things on that property, we are strongly suggesting it. Some trees, things of that nature.
Yeah, there's a number of similar conditional uses in that neighborhood, and we always recommend a good neighbor policy of doing more than doing more project or aesthetic improvements than what the minimum requirements would provide for. And in this instance, I think the developer is on board with that. And there's going to be a lot of green space anyway, just by nature of the size of the lot, and the proposed layouts of the buildings it's quite a bit of green space to the east side towards the neighboring residential properties. So the only comment we heard from the neighbor was about lighting, and please don't let any commercial type lighting spill over onto my property. And that's of course one of the criteria that the Planning Commission discusses when reviewing these. And the developer is on board with that, and staff and the Planning Commission have both recommended approval.
The aesthetic conversation or whatever that you had with them, there is a new building to the north of that. Does that go in the same realm of what they were told, since that's actually along the street?
So that building did not require a conditional use permit, so that met the requirements, the basic requirements for a principal permitted structure. So we do talk to all developers about maintaining that green space in that setback area. But no, there really isn't an opportunity in instances like that to extend landscape standards or request with leverage at all any landscape standards.
Are there any more commission discussion?
Dave, what was different about the one to the north that way they did not have to have a conditional use permit compared to this one?
So that isn't a self-storage facility. That's a structure that's planned to have retail space in it and be have a contractor's occupancy. Yeah, and it's all in the definition, and we could make our definitions longer and more descriptive, but there's some problems that can occur with that methodology also.
Any more discussion from the commission? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffner.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 200, new business is consideration of memorandum 20-45 regarding resolution 20-13 for a plat on the south side of Whiting Drive at 1701 through 1807 Whiting Drive. Yankton Area Progressive Growth, Daniel and Estelle Bartosh, and Merrill and Sandy Van Gerpen are the owners. What is your pleasure?
I'll move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffner.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 3 under new business is consideration of memorandum 20-46 regarding resolution 20-14, a plat of 1609 Woodland Loop. Benedictine Convent of the Sacred Heart is the owner. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Hoffner.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 4 under new business is consideration of memorandum 20-47 regarding resolution 20-15, a plat of 2503 Dorian Drive. Johansson Contracting, Inc. is the owner. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Moser.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffner.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. Number 5, under new business, is consideration of memorandum 20-51 and resolution 20-16 regarding the purchase of duty weapons for the police department. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Sarda.
Aye.
Hoffner.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. And finally, number 6, consideration of memorandum 20-52 and resolution 20-17 regarding changes to the personnel handbook. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Amy, do you want to just give an overview of what these changes would entail for the audience?
Sure. Honorable Mayor, members of the commission, as you all know, we negotiated some changes to our collective bargaining unit this fall. And because, excuse me, I'm struggling with sore throat. Because that changed, we need our personnel manual to be consistent with the changes that were made in the collective bargaining unit. So we did a couple of things. One of those was an addition of a holiday, as you remember, and an addition of a personal day. So we've changed that language to reflect that in the personnel manual as well. We also had a change in terms of our inclement weather procedures for employees if facilities are closed, what their options are, whether it be staying, working in their department with the approval of the department head or working in another department, taking vacation, etc. So we're making those changes so they're similar both in the collective bargaining unit as well as in the personnel manual. Also, another change was how we pay out relating to folks that are on call. So we had a little bit of confusion about somebody that was getting a call and they were able to solve the the call on technology versus going physically onto the site. And so the collective bargaining union worked with us so that we are paying those folks for getting woke up in the night and addressing calls, but we're not paying them the 2 hours of full overtime that they were previously arguably able to get. So we ironed that out, and then we reflected that in the collective bargaining unit. I think those are the major changes that we went over. There are some, of course, small language changes as well, but nothing substantial. Those are the major things. And we just want those two documents to mirror each other so that it's easy for our employees and our supervisors to be able to understand and manage. So.
Is there any further commission discussion on this item? Would anyone in the audience like to address the commission on this item? Roll call.
Weber,
Aye.
Benson,
Aye.
Sarda,
Aye.
Aye.
Moser,
I will abstain. I have a husband that works for the city.
Schramm,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion passes. There being no other business on tonight's agenda, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Is anyone opposed? Good evening, everyone.